respect the indigenous people as original stewards of this land and all the relative privileges. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. Our second order of business is the roll call. Ms. Clerk will now take the roll.
Andrea Marbisu, Seven Atisha, Anissa Beckett, here. Jolie Beagle, Julia Capadonna, Brooke Cluster, Jameson Dayton, Cassandra Diaz, here. Lucas Diaz Granados, here. Paulina Gaitan, here. Angelica Groutman, Lily Giovanelli, here. Valentina Guerrero, Kyla Heyman, Osasogie Ioma, Margaret Jelsma, here. Marjana Layden, here. Alejandro Murillo, here. Reese O'Driscoll, here. Sean Paula, here. Emma Peters, here. Asta Saha, here. Ava Serene, here. Isabella Serene. Here. Our third order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any motions to approve the agenda? There's a motion on the floor to approve today's agenda, and there's seconded. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion, we'll now move to vote. All those in favor, please raise your flags. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Our next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the last Senate meeting. Are there any motions to approve? Senator Jameson?
I move to approve minutes from last Senate meeting.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from the last Senate meeting, March 7th. That's been seconded. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll now move to vote. All those in favor, please raise your flags. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes. The next item on the agenda is new business, starting with the presentation of the judicial branch and the newly proposed constitutional amendments.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the quick technical difficulty. So bear with us. I know that we sent out this to you all in an email attached to the agenda for today, and in regards to that, I also sent out a quick Google Doc that has main points that we're going to go over. If you have any questions, I just want to point out that this is meant to be, here's us presenting the various amendment ideas that we are proposing. This goes back to you all next week, in which you will vote. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, though, please mention it so we can address it and try to get it back to you by next week for the vote. With that being said, I'm going to skip over all like the various nuanced stuff, like changing page numbers, everything like that. I'm going to try and address just the big points, and I have two of the associate justices here with me to help me with that as well, if there are any questions. So to start, a lot of this is more nuanced stuff, but to start with the organizational structure, we did clarify and write out the organizational structure of ASG a bit more, including who the different branches are led by, making sure that all the branches are included in that document. Later on, we also included and clarified the finance team with the finance sharing controller as part of the executive branch. We clarified the Senate positions and their specific numbers and constituents. And we also updated TBB positions and their names, as some of the names and numbers of those positions were outdated. Then in Article 5, the executive branch, this one was a bit more hefty. We had various amendments to propose. To start, this was actually proposed, some of these changes were proposed by other members of ASG, including our president, so if you have any questions, they are also able to discuss this. But we created a concept of executive orders which allow structural and internal changes not addressed within Constitution or bylaws. So anything we deem that just like we want to operate slightly differently but isn't otherwise stated. We specifically read out the president's role of appointing new vacant seats and included the president's veto in a more fleshed out manner. It's just things like this that were sort of known to exist but weren't stated fully in the Constitution, or were just briefly mentioned that we felt needed to be clarified based on requests for interpretation. President Andres also included the idea of a presidential pardon as a check on us as the judicial branch for any hearing board decision, which would be subject to a Senate override by 2/3 vote. There's also a more detailed list of the vice president and every other exec member's roles within the document, with various numbers of changes within each role. We clarified the vice president acting in power of the president and every other member in subsequent succession. We included the TBB chair vacancy procedure and included the controller and all the controller's roles, since they were actually vacant from this document completely. In the next article, give me a second to scroll down to it. This one's a bit of a long one with all of the exec members. In the legislative branch, we restructured / updated Senate absence policy, as this was something brought to our attention by Senate E team. Something else that we tried to address, I'm going to scroll to that to show it. Give me 1 second. This section here is the new Senate policy for late absences, which was taken with information provided from Senate lead team as well as what's been practiced this past year. But we just tried to flush out a bit more, so it was really written down. Sorry, I'll zoom in. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. If you guys can't see anything or have any questions, please feel free to let me know and we can try to address it. Within this, the one section that we wanted to point out, if I can find it. Sorry, I have to scroll to it. Section 7, thank you. So we included requests over a certain dollar amount outlined in the ASGBC bylaws must go to Senate for funding approval by simple majority vote. The judicial branch had gone back and forth on trying to address issues that we call this past year with ASGBC funding, with both the respect that the voting has been very confusing as the process has changed and the specific dollar amount. It was mentioned after discussion with our finance chair that maybe this was something to discuss within bylaws and funding guides, but we did try to at least put it in the Constitution saying that it has to go to Senate, since that was listed in the Senate bylaws but not in the Constitution. Process-wise, we had tried to incorporate a 15% limit on ASGBC requests, but this has been edited by our finance chair and other members, so you can discuss that with them, their input and intake on that. We also restructured slightly the Senate Life, Student Life Committee chair and coordinator roles, as our Student Life chair included the concept that maybe the coordinators would function under the Student Life chair, but outside of the committee, as it would allow more members that aren't coordinators within the committee. So we restructured it so that the coordinators are still under the chair, but are a separate thing from the committee as a whole, so that way they structurally work together, but are not limited by only having 3 coordinators and then 2 other members. There could be other members in that committee. We also included another big change. This was brought by our Associate Justice Cole, a process to allow members of the public to speak more freely at Senate with a designated time period. This process was discussed back and forth about just trying to find a way to include a way for students to voice any issues or concerns that they have here at Senate. As I said, a lot of this is able to be read. If you have any comments, concerns, let us know. We can try to address it. I'm just trying to go through all the major points before I run out of time. The next article that we really changed, a lot of this was just minute stuff like grammar, changing titles, stuff like that. But within Article 8, within TBB, we did remove the TBB budget controller, as that is a role that's no longer reserved. It is done within Finance Committee and ASGDC under that designation. So it just wasn't a role that's been observed in the past few years, so we got rid of it. Which was really one of the big changes to TBB, besides updating the amount of people in the branch and what those roles are called. And then the last few changes that we made under Article 9 is the process for the oath of office. This was something also proposed by our president. Here, really quickly, I mentioned this earlier, but this is the line of succession, as that became an issue that we were made aware of this year and we wanted to address as well. This is just a more fleshed out team, or excuse me, a more fleshed out process for that way to be put forward. And then, if I can find it. Sorry, it's a long document. I'm trying to find specifically the part-time things. So bear with me. There we go. Transitions in oath of office. This was brought by our president, who mentioned having the oath of office being administered is something that we do, but it nowhere is actually declared that it must be done. So we just wanted to include it as this is a necessary step to have people sworn in and voted in, as well as the process for that. And then the last major change that we made, which was to be in accordance with the judicial branch bylaws that we changed earlier in this year, if you remember, was that for the associate justice selection committee, it is in accordance with the new process, which is the same process with the exception that it no longer has to have one staff member with Robert's rules. It is just an ASG advisor and the other members of that selection committee present. As I said, a lot of this was nuanced stuff, so you can take a look at like date changes and including numbers, stuff like that. If you have any questions, let us know. I do have other members of the branch here who can answer questions, but this was just an overview of the big points that we tried to address.
Senator Sean.
Thank you guys, great presentation, thank you, John. Okay, so I have a lot of questions, sorry. I'll try and keep them as brief as possible. So the first thing, I think, and I'll just ask them all now so you can get back to them, so I don't have to keep popping on the second asking. So the first one was referencing all of, I think it's Article 4, Article 5, all the stuff we were talking about involving like presidential powers. And I was kind of curious about some of that because like maybe you can clarify like what presidential pardon would be used for and why that would be a good idea and not just like an extension of like increase in presidential power for like I don't see a whole lot of reason for it, but maybe I'm unaware of context to that. And then also regarding like executive orders and stuff, I think you mentioned that those kind of like exist already, like involving like structural stuff. I was just kind of curious what those look like. And then the last thing was regarding HGVC stuff. The way I read that, so we're removing the requirement for a two-thirds majority on ASGVC requests, and then also did it used to say in the Constitution that our like allocations had to be within 15% of the ASGVC recommendations? We just weren't doing that because that's like I feel like why has no one brought that up before? Okay, sorry if that's a lot at once. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to hand it to Caitlin to explain the HGDC part, and I will.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Okay. So for the ASGBC one, the 15% was actually an edit we made to attempt to address some of the timeliness and discussion issues we've been having with those funding requests, and also just to try to have HGBC's recommendations taken a little bit more seriously within Senate, as well as try to create a little bit more structure for like getting that number put in as like during debate and make the process just a little faster, since we do have so many requests, and also just to be more like respectful of the budget that we do have. So that was an edit we put in, which y'all can choose to accept or not. I know the finance chair did get rid of it because he wants to be able to like edit it through bylaws. That was also why the $10,000 was taken out, so that that number could be changed through bylaws with just like obviously adjustments to like the prices of things in the future, adjustments to the ASG budget. So you guys can choose to accept or deny what you want. The only thing that was previously in there was the $10,000 amount, not in the Constitution, but just like in ASG Constitution bylaws anywhere. The 15% was an additive. And then, oh yeah, and then with the simple majority vote, the 2/3 was never in the Constitution. It's just if it doesn't state what the vote should be, it defaults to 2/3. And we hadn't previously had the like, oh, you guys deny it, and then it goes to a number. So because we like didn't have that structure set up anywhere, it was like a default to the 2/3, and that makes like the voting really difficult. So we wanted to write down that it was simple majority, so it didn't like default to the 2/3.
And then to address your other points, the executive and presidential powers was something that had been talked a lot by our ASU president, and I tried to talk with him what he was looking for. This was something that we had come to a consensus of in a few different points of context. So executive orders was just something that structurally we would do to sort of organize ourselves a bit more outside of the Constitution and bylaws, because we wanted to make any change to how our meetings are run, but it isn't something that's clearly stated or addressed. There was no process for that previously. This was really just an attempt to try and focus on that. As for the pardon, this was something that got brought up. Actually, a few different people had mentioned this, that as judicial branch, when we have a hearing board, our decision is final as long as there's not an appeal to the vice president of student life. And so people were asking, why is it that what we say is done? So there is a concept of maybe trying to appeal that decision or get it pardoned by the ASU president. We didn't want to give all that power to one person, so we gave the pardon privilege, but then we also said that the pardon can be overridden by the Senate with a 2/3 vote. And again, just to restate, this is just proposals. This isn't necessarily like you have to agree with this. You could say, we like everything but that part, get rid of it and we'll approve it. Like that's absolutely fine too. We were just trying to address every sort of issue that we've heard or had this past year, essentially. This was with talks from exec members, with talks from other senators, stuff that we were trying to address.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon.
So I am also talking about the executive power, but for the executive order, I know that it says that it has to be presented, or like I guess shared with Senate within 1 week of it being passed, and that Senate can then overturn it with a 2/3 vote. I was wondering if there'd be any way to include a time as to like how far before the next Senate meeting that has to be. Because I can see that it might be problematic if we hear of it at like 11 p.m. Wednesday night, and then on Thursday, it's like this is the vote, and only half of us have actually looked at what we're talking about.
That's actually a very valid concern, and I can see why that would be something brought up. We can try to address it that if this is something that you all do want to approve, that it could be that the president has to give notification within 48 hours or something like that. So it's a reminder that, you know, hey, this is what's going to be addressed, look over it within 2 days. That could be something addressed, absolutely.
The sustainability.
So I did want to ask a follow-up question about section 2H on the presidential pardon, because I know that you said it's for organizational purposes, but I am worried that that can conflict with like the integrity of judicial hearings, and also the section H, having the power to veto any motions or resolutions passed by student senate, I do also think kind of can lead to potential implications on like discrediting the decision-making process of senate. So I would kind of like to see those like maybe refined, and maybe if we could also hear like some like more like rationale besides like just like the organizational purpose of it all.
So with the veto, this was actually something we had addressed with a constitutional interpretation earlier in the year. It is mentioned briefly that the president has a veto on the Senate. As to what that looks like or to have that be written out, it wasn't there. So this was us trying to clearly write this out as to what that looks like. As it stands right now, it just says the president has a veto on the Senate, or any motion passed by the Senate. Very broad, very vague. So we were trying to type that out and give more context and more details on what that process looks like. As it stands right now, that was our intent, was just to make it, here's what the veto looks like, here's what it can be used on. As it stands right now, the president does have a veto. Like that is process currently. We were just trying to address it and flush it out a bit more. Absolutely.
The ASG president.
I just wanted to address like some of those things. This has been kind of conversations that the judicial branch and I have been kind of like fleshing out. One, the executive orders is not vested in the president. That's the executive board as a whole vote together to decide on things that can support the whole organization as a whole. The reason why it was being clarified is because as exec, we kind of already kind of do this, and we kind of like, oh, like, are we going to move forward in this? We kind of like, oh, are we going to have these office hours in the office? Are we going to move to here? This was just more a way of formalizing it. It's not necessarily creating a new power per se. It's just kind of writing it down in more clear stance and affirming the fact that the executive board can do these things, but providing checks in it through Senate and the judicial branch. So both the judicial branch and you guys as senators have the power to override it or decide if it's not correct. So it's just making sure that that process is just laid out, even though it kind of already exists. Like we kind of already in executive trying to make decisions together about how the organization is run. The main thing is that if you look at the Constitution, there isn't any internal mechanism for making internal organizations. Like a lot of the resolutions that we have, a lot of the ways that we work are specifically about supporting students, which is great, but there's no internal structure about how, like, should we do this, should we not, you know, kind of like perform that. So that was the behind that. The pardon wasn't necessarily like trying to give it necessarily to the president, but it was something that like a lot of students have come to like saying like, oh, why is it just the judicial branch have this only thing and have a different source of student appeal? So having a different source that isn't an admin appeal, but have another source of like a student can oversee that. That was the whole point of that. And again, it's always checked by Senate's 2/3 majority. So nothing is absolute and can be overridden by Senate and all of these things.
Point of order, the allotted time has expired. Not mentioned this, but I will say there are two $10,000 requests after this on the agenda. So just think about it. Thank you to the judicial branch. The next item on the agenda is a presentation and vote on new student organizations.
What a personal privilege.
Take them all.
Do you guys hear me? Okay. So we have two new clubs. The first one is the SACNA Student Chapter. The purpose of this organization is to promote diversity and inclusion in STEM, and they want to allow for national connections and resources for Native Chicanos and Native Americans in STEM, while also promoting a diverse community in STEM where certain people groups may be underrepresented. So that is an old new student organization. And then a new student organization is USC Women's Gymnastics. And the purpose of this organization is to unite women through the sport of gymnastics, and their goals are to work on discipline, both physically and mentally, while making connections with other women. And they want to allow for a non-competitive space where women can enhance past or present gymnastics skills. So with that, are there any questions about either?
The academics chair.
I move
to approve all the new ordinary registered clubs.
There's a motion on the floor, that has been seconded to approve all re-registering clubs. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion, we'll have a vote. All those in favor, please raise your flags. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a presentation to ASGBC recommendation on a $10,000 plus request by the National Society of Black Engineers.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for sharing your time and consideration with us. I am Christian St. Clair, the Vice President for the National Society of Black Engineers here at USD. The National Society of Black Engineers at USD has 43 registered members. Most of our members are students currently majoring in computer science, mechanical, electrical, integrated and industrial and systems engineering. We are one of the largest racial identity-based academic clubs at USD. Our mission is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. That is our mission on a national scale. So we apply that to both our meetings here at USD, but also to everything we do on the national level. So here I'm going to be talking to you guys today about our national convention, which is going to be held in Atlanta, Georgia, just next week. So here I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about that and a request we have for the funding of that. So this year, again, it is going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Georgia World Conference Center. I had a if not, that's okay. Okay, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, this year it's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia at the Georgia World Conference Center. It's going to be held from March 20th to March 24th, which is just next week. The theme is engineering community, again highlighting that this is the actual 50th convention for the National Society of Black Engineers, so it's a big milestone for the society as a whole. So what is at this convention? There's going to be a career fair with more than 240 companies looking to hire new grads and interns, which allows our students to get exposure on a national level beyond just the West Coast and San Diego area. We get to talk directly to recruiters hiring for full-time and internship opportunities. No more cold applying behind a screen. You actually get to see those recruiters, connect with them on LinkedIn, and get inside that network a little more personal. Beyond the career fair, there's also competitions to help build your resume and to earn scholarships and awards. These include different types of events that we'll go over in just a couple slides as well. There's also academic achievement events, hospitality suites in order to get face-to-face with those recruiters, as well as employees that are currently working at those companies, so you can kind of get an insight on what's going on at the companies that you'd like to work with. Some of those competitions we were talking about include an academic tech bowl, an elevator pitch competition, and a hackathon. Some other events include the chapter officer luncheon, which allows our chapter officers to meet other officers from across the nation, which is a big networking event that allows for some great integration and a lot of cool diversity where you get to meet people from lots of different backgrounds. So what we will be doing this conference is bringing 28 total students, 27 of those being undergraduates and one of those being graduates. A majority of those students coming are going to be juniors and seniors. Last year we brought 29 students to Kansas City, Missouri, and we had 20 unique internship offers and 20 unique post-grad offers among those 29 students, with many of the students coming home with multiple offers. This year we're projecting a similar number. We're bringing 28 students, and especially we're anticipating some great results for our juniors and seniors. We actually hold some mandatory prep events that include building a great resume and building a great LinkedIn profile to ensure the success of the students that are attending. This is kind of just a taste of what this kind of career fair looks like. It's a really big event, especially in terms of getting that many Black professionals and students into one room is a really big deal. There's quite no space like it, so it's a great opportunity for a lot of our students to get exposure to meeting people from those companies and seeing people that look like them as well, knowing that there's people like them at the places that they want to work at. This year, the National Society has projected 15,000 total attendees from all ranges and demographics. So lots of different people. There's a great opportunity to meet people older than you, younger than you. There's juniors in like the middle school and high school area, as well as other college students, recruiters from these companies, and professional members as well. We also have some great faculty joining us. So we are very grateful to bring along USD's Vice President for Student Affairs, Charlotte Johnson. She will be joining us this year for her first NSBE conference, as well as the Shiley Marcos School of Engineering Assistant Dean of Student Engagement and Inclusive Excellence, Dr. Rhonda Harley, who is also our advisor. So she's a big help in making sure that we have some success at this national conference. In terms of funding for what we are requesting, I'll be here to break that down for you. So, like I mentioned, we have some numbers to adjust for these slides. So I think that I wasn't able to get those updated slides to you guys, but for now, that number of 98,000, you can ignore that. We are currently requesting $8,035 for our registration cost. That 9,800 was our projected cost without knowing what our confirmed registration cost was going to be. But we now know that the updated number is $8,035. In addition to registration, we would also really benefit from getting our housing covered. So originally we had requested a total of $1,481.69, which was the cost of one hotel room for the course of those 4 nights. Instead, that updated budget would be 2 of those hotel rooms. So because of that registration cost coming down, we can actually allocate that funding from that registration cost to cover one of those hotel rooms instead. So it's $370.42 per night. After doing the math to get 2 of those nights, you get a little bit under $3,000. So that was, again, the total of the registration cost in one hotel room, but for adjusting for the registration cost coming down and the cost of the hotel rooms, we're basically just looking for $11,000 in funding. We also receive additional funding from some other donors and some other big names as well, including the San Diego Foundation, our donors Charlotte Johnson, Gail Baker, and Pamela Gray Payton, as well as Clarity Design, which is a big supporter of not only the National Society of Black Engineers, but also the Shiley Marcos School of Engineering. All of these donors and funders help us cover additional expenses such as airfare, NSBE apparel so that we can rep our school as well as our donors and the companies that help support us get there, and food for our students attending. So yeah, thank you again for taking the time and consideration. I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, would love to answer them.
This time is allotted for your questions. If you have any, please ask. The Student Life Committee Chair.
I think I found the answer, but I just wanted to double check. You said there's 28 people going,
Yes.
and then is it the same division by the 1 graduate, and then are you also including the 2 advisors as well in that total?
The 2 advisors are funding their own trip, so no, they are not in our request.
But you are including the 1 graduate student.
Yes.
Thank you.
there are no more questions, let's give another thank you.
Alright.
Hi, hey everyone. This is me, the ASGBC recommendation, over $10,000 request for NESB. Just as a reminder, I know I presented this last time, but this is going to be ASGBC members, so the voting members are going to be on the left-hand side, and non-voting members are going to be on the right-hand side, so that's going to be myself, the controller, and the ASG advisor. Just some points to consider. How much money do we allocate for other events on campus? We fund around 100 plus student organizations with a weekly average of 30 requests every week, varying at different amounts. That could be all the way from $20 and all the way up to $40,000 every week. And then how do we fund and support reflect ASG values, and how do we reach different groups of people on campus? Just to make sure that we're funding all areas around campus, and how do we get around that? And then how do we balance the budget to ensure we can fund requests throughout the semester? AKA, that's why we have the ASGBC funding guide, to make sure that we can allocate the whole semester. And then for this one, it's going to be falling into the conventions, conferences, retreats category on our ASGBC funding guide, which is shared to every student organization. And just as a reminder, food costs will not be funded. Travel, transportation, registration, and lodging costs may not exceed $80 per person per night. And then the rest is just, you can read. And then funding will only be allocated for undergraduate students, which is consistent with everything that we do fund in ASGBC. Just a current budget outlook. We had $175,000 at the beginning of the semester. After we funded last week's over $10,000 request and this week's meeting, we are currently at $35,835,000. And we also have 5 requests over $10,000, including the 2 today that we'll be presenting. This is just an updated budget for the rest of the semester. So ASGBC's recommendation, this was decided on the $11,281 request that was submitted to us this Tuesday. So this was not with the new number that they presented today. It was $10,800 for the registration and lodging for undergraduates only. And this is going to be for only the 27 undergraduates attending this event. And this is going to be $100 per person per night. This was in accordance to what we also did with last week's presentation. So ASGBC did decide to keep the $100 per person per night because that's what they funded last week. Because they came in last week as well. So it's still the same number we presented last week. For voting, this is going to vote to approve or deny ASGBC's recommendation. If it is denied, please vote for a new funding amount or vote to send it back to ASGBC for review. Any questions?
Senator Isabella.
So just to confirm, that number is essentially what they're asking for, but you just took out the graduate students since we don't fund grad students. Cool, thanks.
The speaker person for.
Personally, I find this number very reasonable, so I'm just going to start off by making a motion. Of course, we can have any debate discussion continuing, but I moved to approve ASGBC's funding request for $10,800.
Second.
I would also suggest that y'all narrow it down to just for the undergraduates and registration and lodging aspects of the thing. Just FYI. but there is a motion on the floor that has been seconded to approve the ASGBC recommendation amount of $10,800. Is there any discussion? The
Point of
student life
information.
signature.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. When you say that we need to include the registration and lodging, is that not implied when we say that we're accepting the recommendation?
Yeah, so I forgot about that. So since it is approving the AHBC recommendation, you can just say AHBC recommendation. I was just a little confused since it was only 10,800. So sorry about that.
Okay. Now we will move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All of those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. The ASGBC recommendations.
Point of personal
Taken well.
I know.
The next item on the agenda is the presentation and ASGBC recommendation on a $10,000 plus request by the people of the islands.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya. I'm a member of People of the Islands Club. This is Eco and Marina, and we are here presenting on behalf of our Spring Luau 2024.
So first, on to the event details. We'll be having on April 27th later this year at the same location as last year, the Camino Founders Courtyard, from 5 to 9 p.m. We raised our expected attendance to 400 to 450 people because this year for our organization, we've had the greatest amount of attendance, participation, and collaborations with different organizations. And as always, it's going to be a $10 admission fee for non-USD students who have attained that.
This year's theme is He Aloha Pau'ole o Kamakani o Kau'ula.
This means the love that the Kaua'ula winds cannot extinguish. Not only does this represent the loving and resilient community of Lahaina, but it also resonates with our club's mission of spreading aloha spirit here at USD. We have faced many setbacks because we are a small club, and this just further emphasizes our dedication to bringing Hawaiian culture to the USD community. Just for some background, the Kaua'ula Valley lies in Lahaina and receives some of the strongest trade winds in all of Hawaii. It's known for its power and destruction in songs and history. And this brings us to August 8th, 2023, when fire tore through Lahaina, traveling up to a mile a minute. The beloved Front Street was burned to ash along with my workplace, family business, and friends' homes. Thankfully, my house was salvaged because it was the furthest up the mountain. However, everything below it is absolute rubble. I saw firsthand how this devastated my community, and my home will never be the same. USD cannot afford to overlook this tragedy, and we need to be here to support it. That's why we decided to make this luau in fundraising for the Maui fire relief. We're starting this Lahaina Love campaign on campus where we will sell merchandise, and 100% of our profits will go from the Lahaina Love campaign, and this has changed. Additionally, 100% of the luau profits will go to the Hawaii Community Foundation. They have a Maui Strong Fund that supports Lahaina fire survivors with immediate and long-term recovery relief.
In past luau's, they've all been pretty successful. We have around 300 people, except for last year due to our budget restraints. We were forced to remodel our entire event, and committee members had to pay out of their own pocket. Now on to cost breakdown. Food, it's a little bit over $6,000, but we do want to highlight traditional Hawaiian dishes, such as chicken katsu, Klua pig, and max salad. I also want to know we'll be switching to kinds. In past years, we used homestyle Hawaiian, but we see this as a cheaper alternative. We've been in contact with the business's owner, and he's offered to give us a discounted price. He's also a local San Diego business owner, as well as a local Hawaiian owner. And for drinks and paper goods, it's changed. It was originally a little bit over $900, but a large portion of this is because of the required USD Dasani water bottles and the San Diego food permit. which we do realize it is now $300. And for equipment, it's a little bit less than $2,000. This includes staging, seating, lighting, and audio system. And as I mentioned before, this is going to be an outdoor event, so we plan on using natural moonlight and the lights already in the patio to illuminate the area. But we do want to showcase our stage, which is why we're getting the hex bars. And I've been in contact with Jeffrey Hugger. He's offered to give us seats and tables, but it's not enough for our expected attendance, so we're going to get extra seating. We also hope to go for a more fluid seating environment, which is why we're getting belly bars. We've also been offered a stage, but we see that it's too small for what we want to do. We're trying to get a larger alternative because we see the current stage as a liability. We'll be having dances, performances, and games on the stage, so we don't want to risk the health and safety of any of our players.
So this is the cost breakdown of our decorations. We decided to go with monstera leaves, tea leaves, and plumeria flowers, not only because they are essential to any luau, but also because they are the most cost effective. The large portion of these decoration costs will be for plumeria flowers, which we will be doing lei making. So decorations are a very important part of luau, as is lei making. It's a way for us to share our culture and share our history. Last year, this was cut from the allocated budget, and members of Poi's family shipped tea leaves from Hawaii to us out of pocket. And it's just a representation of how important these decorations are in lei making. And we don't want members of Poi to have to pay out of pocket.
So next, we'll be having activities for our luau. We'll be bringing in 2 local vendors. They've offered to give us discounts to participate in our luau. But these businesses are very personal to us. They have direct ties to some of our current Poi members. And also, we usually account for around 20 dancers for our luau, but this year we have nearly 40, so which is why we're trying to get extra fabrics, materials, and costumes to account for everyone. We'll also be getting a student performer and a professional performer to help us as well. And for our student performers, we'll be having Izzy and Dave. They're current USD third years. They performed at last year's spring luau, and we've invited them again to perform this year.
And we are happy to say our main performer this year will be Kamale Kawa'a. He's essential to this luau because of his passionate songs and connection to Maui. He was my personal mentor in high school and helped us further practice traditional Hawaiian culture. And we think that he will be able to bring that to USD as well.
And this leads to our total budget is about $300 less, but for right now it's $20,050.30.
So on to fundraising. So we have thought of different ways to fundraise. We are going to be selling merchandise for the Lahaina Love campaign. This will include stickers, tote bags, and shirts. We also have a change funding link where members of Poi, family, and friends can donate. And then we're also going to be doing a fundraiser with Mama's Island Sweets. But we are in talks with a member of Poi who is a representative of this company. We're also reaching out to local companies in Hawaii, such as Maebo's One-Ton Chips. However, we're having a hard time asking these local companies for their help, especially when they're also helping to rebuild Lahaina with us. We feel that luau would greatly benefit our USD community because we would be able to spread the culture of Hawaii and awareness of what's currently happening in Maui to students, faculty, and staff. We feel that this perfectly aligns with the university's goal of diversity and inclusion. With that in mind, we have asked other multicultural clubs to collaborate with us at this event. Those clubs will include FUSO, ASA, VSA, MECHA, and ACHA. These clubs have previously collaborated with us, and we have asked them to join us and table at this luau event. FUSO alone has around 200 members. MECHA and ACHA each have around 150, and VSA has around 100. And so taking into account member overlap between the different multicultural groups, we are expecting an extra around 200 members from these multicultural groups to attend luau, which is why the number of people is heightened and also why we need enough food and activities for our USD community. We also feel that luau will greatly benefit our San Diego community because luau is welcome and open to everyone and anyone. It's more than just a USD event. We have invited outside groups and vendors such as Easy Day Onigiri and Mama's Island Sweets, who all have ties to the native islands. We have also thought about inviting House of Chamorro, who have ties to the native Mariana Islands. But while we were planning this luau, we tried to be very conscious of who we wanted to support with this opportunity, because we felt it would not only be good for these local vendors, but also a big opportunity for the San Diego community, because it gives them a way to experience what we feel when we go home, or our traditions and our cultures. Ultimately, we want this luau to be so successful because we want to share our love and awareness and support for Lahaina. We want to embody USD's change-making mentality by not only spreading awareness, but also taking action. We're not going to move on from the tragedy that has happened in Lahaina. It's not just a trend to us, this is a reality. As a member of this club, and I think as we feel the responsibility to remember our culture, to share our history, and honor our home. Mahalo nui loa. Thank you.
This is your time to please ask questions, so you don't have to see tiny later. Senator Ann?
Thank you all for coming today. I am familiar with your guys' group. I have ties with the music department, and I know that you guys have performed at the Arts and Culture Festival before. And I was wondering if you have tried reaching out to Emily Amrine, the chair of the music department, so because I know that you'd be using the Camino courtyard, and so I was thinking maybe they can also help you with some sort of funding, because they're always looking out to help small groups and also like small clubs and anything that has to do with music, performing, and activities. So that could be another source of funding for you guys.
Senator Elsa.
Yeah, I'm also in the music program. Hello, okay, very much, super cool guy. I saw that you had snow cones down from Miss Island Suites. I think that's something that's going to be relatively well managed by a student. You know what I mean? So, like, maybe that can be something that we cut down on, you know?
Yeah, for snow cones, we aren't allowed to make food ourselves, so we aren't like able to make the snow cones and like bring it here, which is why we have to hire like a contracted service. And we usually go with cone ice, but the business we're bringing in is about a third of that price for the same amount, so it's a discount price than what we usually do.
Let's try to limit this to discussion questions rather than suggestions for their body. Unfortunately, we don't want to suggest how they use their money. Senator Sean.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it. It's pretty good. I just had a question because you mentioned like that profits would go to this or the Hawaii Community Foundation, and I think that's really wonderful and great opportunity. But I was just curious, like, do you guys intend? Do you think you'll make a profit on this, or where the profits coming from? Is that from? I think you were selling like stickers or something. I was just curious about that whole breakdown.
Yeah, so we have our Lahaina Love campaign where we'll sell merchandise that actually I made and our chair made. So we'll have 100% of those profits go to the Maui Community Foundation, as well as 100% of the luau profits, which includes the ticket sales. We'll also have a donation table there, so people can buy more merch or donate on their own. But yeah, it'll mainly come from the outside USD guests.
The Health and Wellness Coordinator.
Thank you so much for coming. This looks so amazing. But a really quick question on the activities spreadsheet for the performers. The second performer, the non-student performer, it says that aside from the price of having him come, there's also a $5,000 price of 7 travel accommodations. I'm assuming that's like band, all those. Is there anyone either, I don't know, a little bit with like less travel accommodation pricing or maybe a bit more local that could come instead of because this would add up to $8,500. So I'm just curious if there's another like backup option or anything like that for a second performer.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. Kamale Kava'a is probably the most affordable performer we could get. I do personally know him, and that's why I did get a discounted price. But unfortunately, because we are, flying them in from Hawaii to get it as authentic as we can get, that does have pretty hefty travel accommodations. And there are 7 band members that we do need to transport. And tickets from Hawaii range from $400. So it will be pretty steep regardless. And we also reached out to our local San Diego community, and there's no one that could go match our price or go under that. So really this is our only option. But thank you.
Senator Paulino.
Thank you guys for your presentation. My question goes around your funding strategy. So I see that you say selling merchandise, your change funding link, and I wanted to ask what your expected value of outside funding is, given like any expectations that you have for this year or comparing it to the same event from previous years.
So I was not fundraising chair from previous years, but as of this year right now, we are writing to local businesses in Hawaii. I personally am using my connections back home on the Big Island, and people on the Big Island love to support Maui. So that's where the bulk of our fundraising is going to come from. We're also having the change funding link that we're going to ask our members of POI to donate at our GBMs. And then there's also smaller fundraisers that we were thinking about doing, such as the Urbane, the Chipotle. If you hand out the flyers and members of POI go, then you receive partial benefits of all the sales that they make in one day. We were going to try and avoid selling food on campus because we would have to go through a separate vendor, and we can't make spam musubis by ourselves and sell it. So that was the reason behind that.
Senator Paulino.
Just like a follow-up to that, and you might not have these numbers right now, but is there like a numerical estimate?
Yeah, so I know in past years, as far as ticket sales regarding non-USD admissions, we've received, it's 20% of our attendance, so it ranges from $600 to $800, and I think last year we received around $700 worth of non-USD, which goes to that. And then as far as fundraising, we've also received several $100 through our fundraisers throughout the semester. I don't remember the exact number, it ranged from $300 to $500 throughout the semester.
Senator Sean.
I just had a quick question about, you mentioned the Dasani bottles and that they're required. Can you give me more context on that and why it wouldn't be possible to get water coolers or cups and water from the school or from?
Yeah, of course. So we've been in contact with Charles Ramos. He's in charge of the food and catering service. We can only sell products that are Coca-Cola brands, so we can't go any other way of going around it. Dasani is really the only water we can do. We've thought about using coolers and everything like that, but we do realize it is a risk for people's health and safety if we're using the same thing. If that is an option, we'd love to go down that route. But as far as talking to Charles, he told us that we have to go down this route.
We're only going to limit it to 2 more questions. So the Student Life Committee Chair.
Thank you. My question is pertaining to the 400 to 450 people for the expected attendance. Can you just explain where that number came from just a little bit more for context?
So we do lean a lot on our outer community to come, as well as the members of POI and friends. But this year we do believe that it's going to be a lot more students specifically coming because we have invited 5 other multicultural clubs to come table at this event. This year we really tried to focus on collaborating with MECHA, ACHA, FUSO, VSA, ASA. And so we did try and take into account the overlap between members, but all in all I think there's an added 650 total members from the 5 clubs that we have asked to table. So taking into account the overlap and around how many students would come, that's why we estimated an extra at least 150 to 200 students to come. Is that good? Thank you.
Parliamentarian.
coming today. My question was just regarding ticket sales. How much were you planning on charging, and are you just charging non-USD students, or were you charging USD students as well?
Yeah, so our tickets will be $10 for non-USD students, but we will not charge USD students because a part of our Aloha spirit is to be very inclusive, and that's why we wanted to make it accessible for anybody to come.
Thank y'all for presenting. Our finance chair is going to suggest that we recommendation process.
Hello, so we're back with another ASGBC recommendation. This time it's for Troy. Again, we just saw this. So again, voting members on the left-hand side, non-voting members on the right-hand side. That would be me, the controller, the finance chair, and then the advisor. Points to consider, very similar to obviously the last presentation, but I just want to restate it for this recommendation as well. How much money do we allocate for other events on campus? How does what we fund and support reflect ASG's values? And how do we reach different groups of people on campus? How do we balance the budget to ensure we can fund requests throughout the semester? This request falls under the events open to the entire student body category, which is shared with every student organization. This is like the most common category as well, so a lot of the requests that we receive fall in this category. So in this category, it's for non-GBM events that are open to the entire student body, a maximum of $10 per person with a $1 increase for BIPOC, and then also some like other information about parking passes. So again, our current budget, we had $175 at the beginning of the semester. If you calculate our current budget subtracting NSBs, it'll be around $25,000 now. And so we have now four requests over 10K, including poise. So after poise, it should just be 3. ASGBC's recommendation, so they decided on $9,720 only for undergraduate students only. This is awarded in a lump sum, so it can be used for food, decorations, performers, just kind of whatever Poise decides to use that money for. This number was based off the $27 per person, which is based on past and similar events. We did have a request come in 2 weeks ago to Senate, and we decided on the $27 per person amount. Also for this category, it would originally be $11 per person, and we decided to increase that for kind of bigger events for student orgs. And this is based on the 80% of expected undergraduates. So they said that they were expecting 450 people, and then in the presentation it said 80% would be undergraduates, so it would be a total of 360 expected undergraduate students. So 360 times 27 would be 9,720. And then for voting, just please vote to approve or deny ASGBC's recommendation. If denied, please vote for a new funding amount or vote to send back to ASGBC to review. Any questions?
Senator Shaw.
Alright, so this is just an informational question for the finance chair, excuse me, because I know it's probably on the forefront of our minds that, as you mentioned in the presentation, that we have around $25,000 left in the budget, and then after this, we'll probably have much less than that, depending on what we allocate. So I just wanted to know, I know last year we allocated like reserves for this, so I wanted to know what the process for that is, if there was plans for doing that, because we have 3 more requests and everything, just so we can be transparent about how budgeting is going to go forward for the semester. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Q3 is going to be, well, it's due today, or Thursday, due yesterday. So I'll be presenting Q3 rollover and reports next Thursday. I'll be requesting a good amount of funding off that rollover amount, just to support us for the rest of the semester. And if it gets to a point where we aren't able to fund other requests, then I'll be going to reserves. So first, right now, I'm going to go for rollover of what was unspent last semester and request for ASG Finance Committee. I'll have a decision, or I'll have a presentation on that Thursday. And if that doesn't sustain us for the rest of the semester, then I'll go into reserves. But reserves is like the last option I want to do, just because we do have a lot of unspent funds that we did have last semester.
Senator Sean.
And just to clarify, do you know how much the reserves are? Sorry, the rollover is?
Yeah, so currently, the last time I checked, is around $125,000 of unspent funds that's going to be rolled over for quarter 3. And that is without calculating some unspent funds from the beginning of the semester that if senators or ASG execs said, oh, we're not going to be planning for the rest of these funds. So I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit more than 125. So probably around 135, somewhere between there.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Paulino.
My question is for the finance chair and the controller. How much money was allocated for this event from Boyd last year or the year before, if you have those numbers available?
So off the top of my head, I don't have exact, but it was around 9,000. I think it was a little bit less than 9,700. I believe it was 9,100, but I'll get those numbers to you real quick.
Senator Alejandro.
The recommendation that you guys gave, was that based off what the budget that we have left, or was that based off the budget we have left and the rollover that's hopefully expected to come?
So just to answer your question, yeah. So since we do have a sizable rollover request, this was taken into account with this. So with our budget right now of $25,000, I know that seems very low, but we were expecting to get rollover funds. So this was not, or yeah, the current budget was not really taken into account with this consideration. It was just to be more consistent with other clubs that have been coming into the past and what we've been doing the rest of the semester.
Point of order, the time allotted for this agenda item has elapsed.
The speaker person point.
I move to extend the agenda item by 15 minutes.
Second. There's been a motion on the floor to extend the allotted time for this agenda item by 15 minutes. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll now move to vote. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. The allotted time will be extended by 15 minutes. I also suggest that maybe y'all should start discussing numbers. Please. The sustainability coordinator.
I just wanted to clarify why you guys chose the 80% of the expected attendees. I might have missed it, but I wanted to hear why 80.
In the presentation, when at least when they presented to ASGBC, they did say that they were expecting 80% of the total 450 undergraduate, the 450 total expected attendance to be 80% USD undergraduate students.
And then I did get the information on last year's request. We approved $9,133 last year. And then the year before was $15,000.
Senator Rosa.
Just a point of information on the rollover stuff. Does the whatever funding that BC decides, does that get transferred into the Senate fund, or do we have to sort of ask to withdraw every single time that we?
Sorry, I'm a little confused.
Like,
are you saying Senate? Sorry, are you saying Senate Initiatives Fund? Is that what your question is about?
No, the rollover fund into this month that we use for student works and, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So how ASG Finance Committee works is that the rollover fund was just allocated for exec members to request funding. So ASGBC is part of my budget, so I'll be requesting a good amount. I still haven't figured out the number right now since it's dependent on what happens today, but probably around another $50,000-$60,000 to last us the rest of the semester. I'll be requesting that. ASG Finance Committee will vote on that, vote on a specific amount, and then that will be presented next Thursday. But yes, it will go into ASGBC's fund, if that makes sense.
The Student Board Committee Chair.
Okay, just looking back at the Senate slides from February 29th, which was the other one-night event that we just looked over, with ASGBC's recommendation, it was a lump sum for undergraduate students, but there was also like a helpful breakdown of like entertainment, the stage, the decorations, food, etc. Would you happen to have like, because I know we didn't have like the set $27 at that time, but would you be able to either quickly or like break down what this because this lump sum is also for undergraduate students, but would you be able to maybe give a couple rough numbers as to what would be suggested for each category that they have, such as equipment, decorations, food, etc.?
So this was decided to do lump sum, so there is no breakdown on that, so they can use it however they want to for either category for entertainment, performers, food, decorations. So that's what the committee decided. And since last time, it was a little bit different because the expected number of attendees was a large part of our conversation. So that's what happened last time. But we don't have a breakdown for you right now, but it's just gonna be lump sum so they can use it however they want to.
ASG Vice President. I'd also like to remind y'all, you'll only have 9 minutes left. You'll already used 6 minutes of this. A lot of
I think it would maybe be beneficial to them. I don't think all of them, all the senators really know what the rollover is, so I do think you should kind of explain what the rollover is, just to let them know what it means. Like, what is this rollover that you're getting money from?
Yeah. I think I discussed this already, but I'll clarify it a little bit more. So what was unspent last semester, so that's going to be Q1, Q2, from all centers, all ASG exec, that was just unspent money. So it was around $125,000 was just unspent. So that gets rolled into Q3. What happens with Q3 is that the finance chair, myself, awards it to ASG exec to make additional requests for more money. Usually it is not this high. In past years, it's a little bit lower. Last semester, I had a rollover request or presentation for all of you, and I believe that was around $80,000, $50,000 of rollover, and that's when ASG exec decided to request additional funding. So it's just to request additional funding for this semester. It was just unspent funds that people didn't use their money, we didn't use the funding for allocated events, and then that gets rolled over to this semester. So then we can make additional requests for further initiatives, new requests, or old requests.
Senator Shaw.
I just wanted to express that I really think this is a really important event to have on campus, and that we should do the best we can to support it. And I know in the past we've had, different, I guess, kind of inconsistent amounts we funded that they even brought up in their presentation. Like 2022, they got $15,000 from us. In 2023, they ended up with $9K, which is well under what they were asking for, and that kind of posed some difficulties for them. So I think it might be wise for us to, roll over in mind, and that we probably should have enough funds to continue this semester to kind of give them a little bit more, so that they can have this great event and raise some money for a great cause that they're kind of supporting. So with that in mind, I move to reject the ASGBC recommendation. Yes, of 9,000.
Second. There's a motion on the floor that has been seconded to deny the ASGBC recommendation. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a point of clarification real quick. With rollover and reserves, even if we decide today just a number, and with rollover, it might get us to the end, it might not. Like, I'm trying to pace that out. Even if I put $60,000 additional into that fund, we still have around 3 over $10,000 requests, varying from all the way to $20,000 to $11,000. So if we fund all those 3 requests that were due come in, that's going to be all of our rollover that I requested, if that makes sense. Just a point of clarification on that.
The athletics coordinator.
I see them. That is actually there too.
No further discussion. We'll now move. Senator Rosen.
I just wanted to express the same sentiment that Sean did, and maybe saying that there might be some value in tabling this decision until next week. While I understand that plane tickets don't really get any cheaper, maybe deciding this with the context of the other 3 funding requests and just having more money. We're kind of in a scarcity mindset right now, which I get, but I think we should maybe take a bit more time because I really want to support this event as much as we possibly can.
I would also suggest that we'll decide today, just based off there are 3 more funding requests coming in the next 2 weeks, and it would also stay on course to FAR. But the speaker pro tempore.
So just a reminder, we're in the middle of a motion right now. We are voting to approve or deny. So I would recommend that we vote before we continue discussion with Speaker Ring.
Then I would also consider just another thing. They submitted this request February 12th. It's currently March 14th. That's just because we've been back so much. So I don't recommend tabling this request because we have other requests coming in.
Senator Sean.
Yeah, I don't think it would at all be fair to table this, and it also just isn't very practical because each of these requests takes like half a Senate. And if we have 3 more coming, and we want to be productive on the other duties we have to our constituents, we should definitely get this done. I think we should do it as best we can to be as consistent and with kind of like our focus on like to kind of have everything in view from the semester, because as like part of this, I think consideration is, oh, we're nearing the end of the semester and we're halfway through the semester, or whatever, running out of funds, and we're kind of like wanting to be a little bit more careful with that. But also, I think it's a little unfair because the first couple of requests we've had, I think all of them, except for that last one, we voted to deny the ASGBC recommendation. So if we're just going to be like, just because it's towards the end of the semester, we're being unfair to clubs that kind of put in this request, and because backlog didn't come to us for a full month, I just don't think that's very consistent. So I don't think we should table. I think we should just try and keep the whole budget and our revenue record in mind.
The athletics coordinator.
I move to call the question.
There's a motion on the floor to call the question. We will now move to vote to move to the vote to deny the ASGBC recommendation. So we're voting on going to vote, okay? All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll now move to a vote to deny the ASGBC recommendation. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, please raise your placards. keep them raised and keep them down if you're
Nice and high.
nice and high. Nice and low. Whatever you voted initially, it needs to stay that way so we can get an accurate count, please. So please do not change where your placard was. The ASGBC recommendation is denied, or sorry, all those opposed, please raise your placard, sorry. If you're opposed, raise your placards. If you're, okay, the placard's down. If you're abstaining, please raise your placards. Okay. The ASBC recommendation is denied. Motion passes.
Call the question.
Oh. No.
No, that was
We already
the
voted
motion.
on the call to question. The speaker pro tem floor.
I move to call a 5-minute recess.
There's a motion on the floor that has been seconded to call the recess. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Oh my gosh.
At least 4,000 brought
Thank you.
Better not change it.
I asked you guys to. No, you did not.
Well, she's ready to get her minutes.
Recess is over. Please return to your seats. Please return to your seats. Conversation, please. Please return to your seats. Please return to your seats. So, there are 2 minutes left, just FYI.
I would like to mention, when you guys are now deciding on a number, in this week's meeting at AHGBC, we've allocated $22,000. In the past 2 meetings, and also including rugby's request and also QT's request, that was a total of $72,000. That's in just the course of 2 weeks. And just even before like those 2 meetings, all of our meetings we have been allocating around $10,000 to $15,000 per meeting. So that's per week.
Okay, I know that I already asked you all this question like on our own, but just like for everybody else, is the 450 people, is that 80% of a different number, or are we taking 80% of 450 people as a USD attendees?
Yeah, so the 450 was like their total expected attendance, and then they said that 80% of this would be USD students, so that would be a total of 360, and that's what we use to determine the total amount. So it'd be you'd follow the 80. So the 450 is not the 80%; it's the total amount. It'd be the 100 in this case.
Point of order: the time allotted for this agenda item has elapsed.
Senator Sean.
I move to extend the allowed time by 10 minutes.
Second. There's a motion on the floor to extend the allotted time by 10 minutes. That has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll now move to vote. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All of those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. The allotted time will extend by 10 minutes. Please try to decide the number in these next 10 minutes. I highly suggest it. The Speaker Pro Tem 4.
So there were some specifics with POI, talking about numbers of attendees. This was the issue we had with another funding request earlier in the semester as well. So this year compared to last year, they are having a collaboration with 5 other clubs, including FUSO, ASA, VSA, ACHA, and MECHA. So this tabling events are it's seen to most likely increase attendance of undergraduate students, those being some of the other largest multicultural organizations we have on campus. And increase of engagement in our club has been doubled this year. So those are some things to keep in mind when we're talking numbers. So although last year they have the 450 that we're working with, that is attempted to be increased. So we can use that number when calculating. We can have a discussion on what you guys think is best for that. Take it.
Could those who voted against the recommendation start giving a new possible amount to allocate?
Senator Valentine.
No, yeah, like those who do not want like to allocate the 9,720, can a new amount be given, please, so we can like get to the voting stage?
Yeah, it would be best to do this by like if you want to like change the amount of expected undergraduate students. And you can just multiply that either by the 27 or just do it on a different way. But we recommend it just if you want to change it off the expected undergraduates.
Senator Rosa.
I save my time.
The athletics coordinator.
If we took 90% of the 450, that would give you 405 USD undergraduate students, multiplied by the $27 per person would give you $10,935. I think that might be more, like a better reflection of how many USD students would be there. I honestly think it could be more even than that, but just wanting to throw that out there to see if anybody else got those kinds of numbers or how anybody else feels about that number.
The chief of staff.
Hi, I know I'm not a voting member, but both like exec and I feel like this is an extremely important event, and they're expected to have like a lot of people. So we did make a number. You guys can just take it into consideration. So during their presentation, they said they had around expected of 600 people. And if you take 80% of that to be USD undergraduate students, and then times that by the $27 a person, that would be $14,000. So you guys can we're just recommending it. This is an extremely important event, as the academics coordinator suggested, that she suggests more money since more people are expected to come, but just food for thought. Athletics coordinator, sorry.
To my knowledge, the 600 to 650 was not expected under attendance, but that was the amount of people who are in clubs that they invited. So this is the number that they presented to us. The 600 to 650 was about how many clubs they're on road orgs and how many clubs that they are inviting. So I would strongly recommend not to use that number because that's not expected attendance.
Senator Sean.
Just put it out there. We don't have to base our decision off of like attendance. If you guys are struggling with that, we can totally do that. But like we can also just decide like the things we do and don't want to fund. But I know that was something that we were just talking about. some things that might be more priorities than others. So I don't know. I personally don't think we need to follow that $27 and try and come up with some made up number to justify it. I think that's kind of unnecessary. So I'll let you guys figure that out.
Senator Alejandro.
I see my time.
The Health and Wellness Coordinator.
Okay, well, we were just looking at Anissa's number that she had presented on prior for, 405 people, and that was 10,935. And then for the performer cost, there's two costs, 3,500 for the actual performer, and then 5,000 for travel accommodations for the band of 7. So instead of funding the travel accommodations, if we combined Anissa's number of 10,935 for 405 people, and then with the performer cost of 3,500, the number would be 14,435. So that's just another number to throw out there to maybe get that performer here potentially.
Senator Isabella.
I'm about to throw out another number. This one I did with 450 people, multiplying it by the $27. That puts us at 12,150, which is consistent, if not identical, to the number that we gave to the organization 2 weeks ago for a very similar event. So I feel like since this attendance may be similar and the ideas and principles of the event similar, we should be consistent with, but shouldn't give any less than that other organization received.
Senator Paulina. And then I'd also like to remind y'all now have 3 minutes left on this line
item. So I wanted to throw out another number out there considering the growth both of the club and also the collaboration with other orgs on campus. Given that in 2023 they have 300 people attending, same thing in 2022, if we consider both the growth of the school, of the organization, and of the collaborations, and we want to anticipate 600 people attending. 80% of that is 400 undergrads times the $27 per person would be 12,960. So that's another number that we can consider. Or if we're anticipating 500 people, 80% of that is 400 undergrads times $27 each is $10,800. So that's 2 numbers that we can discuss on.
The Speaker Pro Tem Ford.
Going off of Paulina's number by seeing expected growth and then taking that 80% presented by POI of undergraduate students, and we can only fund undergraduate students, I move to approve a lump sum of $12,960.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor that has been seconded to approve $12,960 in lump sum for undergraduate, just a lump sum. Is there any discussion?
I just want to clarify, are you using the 600 or are you using the 400 to 450 people?
Speaker Pro Tem Ford.
600 using expected growth based on other organizations, and then taking 80% of that, so using 400.
The Student Board Committee Chair.
I'd just like to point out, that, we've been, or at least the Student Org Committee has been planning a lot recently, and just getting turnout from orgs is really difficult. I understand that people from other organizations will be tabling, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone from those organizations will show up and stay. Just recently I had a meeting about hosting a student org mixer, and it can be very difficult to get clubs to show up to that. So I do agree with the finance chair in the sense that I think 600 is a little bit high considering, even with the organizations that are invited.
Senator Paulina.
I want to agree with the student org committee chair on that not every event that a student org hosts is going to have 100% attendance. Like at best, you get 80% attendance. So even considering the 480 undergraduate students, that's assuming that every single one of those 480 students is going to the event. So we can get another percentage from that, say 80%, 90% if they anticipate high expectancy of attendance to the event, and get a different number, if that's something that is up for discussion.
The PR chair. Remember, since there is a motion on the floor, the line items that y'all talk about must be about the line item of the motion.
I see my time.
The Student Life Committee Chair.
Hi, so I think there's some confusion over the number that you mentioned for the motion, and I just want to make some clarification. Was it supposed to be 400 times 27 or 450 times 27? Because, okay, the 450, so that would be the $12,150 that Isabella had suggested, which is similar to that of the cuties. And so with that, I move to amend the motion to the 12,150 amount in lump sum.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to amend the motion currently on the floor to $12,150 in lump sum. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion on that. We're going to move to a vote to amend the motion. Okay, so you're not voting on giving the number, you're just voting on changing the number. All those in favor, please raise your placards. Keep them there, please. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. The new number will be $12,150 for the motion. Is there any further discussion on the side item? If there's no further discussion, we'll now move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your placards. Keep them there. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. The Hoy will be awarded $12,150 in lump sum for their event.
Point of personal privilege.
Take it on.
Point of personal privilege.
The next item on the agenda is report from the Speaker of the Senate. Hey y'all, I hope everything's going well. Please, get to working. It's kind of been slow recently in these past couple weeks. Midterms going on, we get it. But before you know it, it's April. We have next week, this last week of March is next week, and then spring break, and then it's March or April, and then all of a sudden we have a month left, and all of our work, who knows what happens to it. Hopefully good things, but just want to keep that for y'all in mind, that there's only a month left really. We do have a little bit of May, but that doesn't really count in actuality because there's a lot of transitions going on during that time. Please keep the Senate initiative sheet updated as you're doing work. That would be fantastic. And so people know what you're doing and how to contact you, and etc. Please make sure you're filling out your office hour log. There's a lot of you that are not filling that out, so make sure you please fill it out, or I will start having conversations with y'all. And go to the office for your office hours. I will also start talking to you. If I see it one more time,
from. I have a couple people, or more than a couple people, but please make sure you're going to your office hours. And then we've created a small team for the teacher union that consists of Dana, me, and Emma currently. We're having a conversation next week, with one of the co-presidents to just see how where ASG could support, etc. And then, as y'all know, I want y'all to remember leaving early or being late will equate to half an absence. And then remember, we have at least three more $10,000 requests coming in. So please come prepared and ready for discussion. Y'all are doing great so far, so keep it up. Make sure you're using your SMART goals, especially on those initiative tasks. And I want y'all to be proud of something that y'all did this year. Remember, y'all are only only a member for the year. So be proud of something. Get something done. All right, next item on the agenda is reports from the Senate lead. And I'm taking a point of personal privilege. So the new acting speaker will be the Speaker Pro Tempore. Congrats.
Hi everyone. So pretty much the same updates, just Senate Initiative Fund. We have a little under 9,000 left. Congrats to the Student Life Committee Chair and the IDEA Committee Chair for their approved funding requests this week. Senate Resources Sheet is the sheet that has literally everything you need to have to be a senator, so please look at it. It is very helpful when you need to do anything. And then new senators, I believe I got everyone's phone numbers. Please let me know if you were not successfully added to the group me. And then famous birthdays are there, and happy birthday, Morgan.
And then I just wanted to make some clarifying points from Senate lead team. So first of all is how stack works. So it's under all the stuff with Robert's rules. There's no exact clarifications, there's suggestions. We just clarified with the Chief Justice. So if you've already spoken on a line item, your name will be taken to bottommost stack. Voting members have priority over no non-voting members to speak, and everything else is up to the discretion of the speaker. Therefore, any of those rules can be changed or accommodated based on what he sees or what they see fit. And then the next thing is the quorum during Senate. Just remember that we have administrators and people from all different organizations coming in here, so we're discussing important decisions. So I just believe that your actions and your facial expressions and verbiage are really important to think about when you're stating your decisions. Thank you. Oh, the next item of business is reports from the committee chairs and coordinators.
Okay, so I'll be reading Julie's slide. She said, hi, great work from academic. She's currently in the process of preparing in advance for academic grants. She's met with the speaker and constituents regarding the Linux Lab and engineering students and the transferring of this officially over to the academics committee, and they will be scheduling meetings from there. She's emailed 3 professors asking them to sit on a meeting, and one has said yes so far, and they will be attending the tailgate tomorrow. Don't forget to wear green on St. Patrick's Day and don't get pinched. And then I'll also be reading.
Everyone, please read the committee chairs and coordinators slides. We do have important updates and flyers and QR codes on there. We have lost quorum. Senate has ended. Thank you, everyone.
And the week before,